What's going on, YouTube? Welcome back to the channel. Run Good here, coming at you with a very different style video today. Today we're doing a Q&A, so we're not ripping anything. It's been a couple of years, honestly, since I've done a Q&A, and with no products releasing until later this week, I thought this was probably a really good time to do a Q&A. You know, it's the start of a brand new month, a lot of stuff going on in the hobby, so I handpicked some questions from my community, some related to me and my collecting experience, some related to some controversies, and then some other just general good collecting advice. If you're new here, as always, I do appreciate a like on my content and a subscribe as well. We are about to cross over 31,000, and I can't thank y'all enough. So yeah, we'll continue to do these Q&As maybe every couple of months or so, or maybe once a month if this one goes off well. Like I said, it's been a little while since I've done one of these, and I have no idea how long this one's going to go. I have no idea where this one's really going to go, other than the fact that I have some questions from some members of our community. As you can see, I am in a new space, so if you've been following along in the live streams or my daily videos, you would know that me and my wife moved only about a half hour from our old place, but now I have a little more space. I have a basement to do card stuff, do our streams, and house my collection, and just some more space in an office that was getting very cramped and very full. So very grateful that we found this place and we were able to move in before the snow came in, because actually the Pacific Northwest up here in the state of Washington actually under a little bit of a winter weather advisory. Actually, we have about 2 inches of snow on the ground. So we actually weren't able to ship out the breaks today, which we expected to do from last week, because there's not much snow on the ground. And I have a truck, but the roads were an absolute mess, because when it snows up here in the Pacific Northwest, absolutely nobody knows how to drive. And yeah, the roads were all backed up, and it was no bueno. So yeah, we decided to wait a day. All right, so yes, let's go ahead and get into it. Some people had some questions for me, so let's go ahead and start it off. Somebody asked, what is your biggest obstacle when you got into this? And I assume you're either asking when I got into doing YouTube content or when I got into doing breaking. You know, when I started doing YouTube content, it was the winter of 2019, around November of 2019, literally like 3 weeks before I hit the Zion 1 of 1 that y'all know about. And at that time, you know, there was a good amount of content on YouTube, but there was nowhere near the amount of channels that there are now. Now YouTube is very saturated with trading card content, both breakers, you've got people ripping retail, you've got people ripping hobby, you've got people on the financial side, you've got people doing grading, and wanting to do, about the controversies in the hobby and things like that. So you have content coming from every corner of the hobby about every little thing. But when I started, it was, a lot less channels, and it was far easier to gain ground and gain subscribers. And I would just recommend, my biggest obstacle in this whole thing was ramping up, was finding the will and the desire to do daily content and create compelling content that I thought people would want to watch. So I just started creating the type of content that I was watching from other channels at the time. And yeah, I think anybody who has a passion for this hobby, anybody who has a persistence and a work ethic and doesn't expect immediate results, can still do well in the YouTube space as far as creating content and building your channel. I will say it is much tougher now for channels. There are some amazing YouTube creators here, especially within our community, who have far fewer subs than they should have. And they do release regular content, and they do release their content properly. And by that, I'm talking about doing good thumbnails, being entertaining during whatever they're ripping, and doing all their titles and their meta tagging properly, because all that little stuff is important. It will help you get views. It will help YouTube determine with their algorithm where your content should be paired to what other channels and things of that nature. So I do think there are channels out there that don't do a good job with that stuff, and that's why maybe they don't get the views or the recognition that they deserve. But there are a lot of good channels that do that stuff and are unfortunately just a victim of oversaturation right now as it pertains to content. And we're going to talk about content a little bit later in the Q&A, but let's go ahead and move on to the next question. It says, what card from your past do you regret selling or not holding on to the most? That's a great question. There's a lot of cards that I, didn't sell at peak or whatever, or sold way too early or sold way too soon. But there's one card that sticks with me that I sold that I haven't seen since I sold it, and that was my 2017 Panini National Treasures Mitch Haniger True RPA 1 of 1. As you guys know, I am a Mitch Haniger super collector. I absolutely love Mitch. He is a free agent now, so we'll have to see if he comes back to the Mariners on a 1-year or maybe even a 3-year deal. I suspect it'll be a 1-year if he comes back, but he has been linked to the Angels, the Dodgers, and the Rangers. So yeah, it's weird being a super collector of a player and having them currently not with your team or not with the team that you started collecting them on. But at one point, I had the full rainbow of that 2017 National Treasure set, and I sold it to fund some other stuff at that point in my life. I think I bought it in 2017. I was able to get the entire rainbow, including the 101, and I sold it in 2018. And it's one of those things that I regret because I liked it. I actually loved it. I had some cards at the time that I liked a little bit more, and now I want that whole rainbow back. And I do have, the 1099. I have the 249. I think I have the 225, but I don't have the gold to 10, and I definitely have not seen the 101 since I sold it. I have reached out to the person I sold it to, and I haven't gotten word back, so I don't know if they have it anymore. With that, somebody asked, what are the top 5 cards in my collection? And again, another great question. Obviously, number 1, I think I have it right here with me. Let's go ahead and see if I have it right here with me. I do. It is, of course, the Zion 1 of 1, the card that I pulled a little over 3 years ago now, 3 years and 1 month. But this is the one that I pulled. 6 months later, I sold, and then I bought it back last November. So I've had it again for about a year. And that whole story is on YouTube, on this channel, if you haven't seen it. Let's go next few. Definitely 2 and 3 are going to be again, going back to Mitch. I own both the 2017 Topps Chrome Superfractor and the Autograph Superfractor. Those are the white whales. White whales, as far as, Haniger goes, those are his true rookie Superfractors. And I waited about 3 years for the first one to show up, and the next one showed up about 8 months later. So it's kind of funny how, you check eBay every single day, and nothing shows up. And then you're laying in bed with your wife at 8 p.m. at night, and, you get some notifications that a Haniger Superfractor gets listed, and it's the one you want, and you buy it, and then the seller cancels it and doubles the price, and you buy it again, and then they finally ship it to you. And then the next one shows up 8 months later. So it was kind of a whirlwind how quickly those 2 cards came along. Cards number 4 and 5, this is where it starts to get a little interesting, because I would say the top 5 in my collection, 2 of them are probably not PC cards. One of them would be my Upper Deck Black Kobe auto to 25. I'm always a big fan of manufactured patches, and this is one that I got in a trade with my buddy Josh. Now, actually, it was a BGS 8, and I cracked it, and I submitted it to PSA, hoping to get a PSA 7. Actually came back a PSA 5. So I'm really not happy with that grade. I think I'm going to crack it for a second time and send it over to SGC. See if I can get something a little bit higher. But yeah, I was really, really upset with those grades on that one. Coming in at number 5, trying to think of I have a ton of Haniger cards. I have a ton of DK Metcalf cards. Cal Raleigh is the guy for the Mariners who I've recently started buying. I have a lot of nice Griffies. I have a lot of nice Russell Wilsons. But I would say right now, the 5th card in my collection, the one that probably means the most to me, and again, going back to Kobe, going back to LeBron, I own the 2007-2008 SP Authentic Kobe LeBron Duel, and it is the variation to 35. I've never seen one since I bought it. I bought it in 2019 for about $200. I was recently offered $3,500 for it. I believe it's a PSA 8. I was offered $3,500 and I turned it down just because I've never seen anyone list that card before. There are versions to $199 and $499 as well, but I don't want to sell that. All right, let's go ahead and move on to questions about controversies. My friend JV Sports Cards asked, what are your fears for the hobby moving forward with fanatics taking over, influencers and the constant filming, negativity surrounding the commercialization of the hobby? And then on the other hand, what are some things you feel could help fight back against these trends? And, this has been one of those topics that has kind of been at the forefront of the hobby. Fanatics taking over, Fanatics buying Topps in 2021, and the rumors that Fanatics is also going to be either buying Panini or working in partnership with Panini. We've already seen some of the groundwork laid with Fanatics with Josh Luber and Zero Cool, which we haven't heard much about lately, and that's been very surprising to me because Zero Cool was, had a lot more momentum at the start of 2022 than it finished it with. We haven't seen too much since the Stranger Things cards that they did. They also did a Jackass set, and I liked some of the groundwork that they were laying, particularly with the true Dutch auctions, which were actual Dutch auctions compared to Panini's Dutch auctions, which are actually reverse auctions. So I liked where that was headed. In terms of what are some of my fears, obviously when somebody owns too big a piece of the pie, they get to call the shots and things like that. I think from what I've seen so far, I think we can trust Fanatics to do a good job with the hobby, at least in terms of not making it any worse. And definitely we've seen some runaways on prices throughout the pandemic, specifically talking about trading card boxes, hobby boxes. We saw the worst of retail with flippers and things like that. And we're starting to see that return to 2019 and before how it used to be, which I think is a very different collecting experience for anybody who may have got in 2020. So I mean, really, there's always that worry about, if somebody has too much control, can they ruin something? Yes. But Fanatics has paid a ton of money, an absolute ton of money to buy Topps. And with that investment in the hobby, even though we're starting to see the hobby return and pandemic collectors go away, and a lot of that maybe speculative money that came from the crypto space, that came from the investing space go away, I think what we're starting to see is, the true collectors, the people who are going to be here in 5 and 10 years, the people who actually care about the hobby. And that's who Fanatics, at the end of the day, right? That is who is going to be paying off this tremendous bill that Fanatics has paid to be in the position that they are in the trading card hobby. So I don't think that Fanatics is going to do anything too out of pocket. I do think that there will be changes. I think that Fanatics will do a good job regulating certain elements of the hobby, like breaking and distribution. And especially on the distribution side, we've heard things about distributors holding back product and then selling it at secondary market price. And what that does is it raises the price for breakers and shops, who otherwise would be getting that product at an allocated price and then can pass that along at a more fair price to their customers. So I do think that will be more tightly regulated. I do think that hobby boxes will be more readily available, whether that's at MLB stadiums, NFL stadiums, at their stores around the country, around the world, whether that's Fanatics selling it direct themselves. And people have wondered, is Fanatics going to be cutting out the middleman? And my personal opinion, I don't believe they will. I think that the distribution network is still there with all the distributors. I do think they will do a little bit more in-house, and obviously Fanatics has a huge network with doing all of the hats and jerseys and t-shirts and apparel and all the things that they do as far as fan shops go. But at the end of the day, I don't think Fanatics is coming to take all of it. I think Fanatics realizes that the networks in place can still be used to their benefit once they regulate it a little bit more. The second part of that question is, what are some things that I think could help fight back against the negativity and the influencers and the filming? And this is an interesting one because I always say, I might have 30,000 subscribers here on YouTube. I might have 10,000 on Instagram. I try to be as relatable as possible to y'all. I don't try to push things on y'all, especially, as somebody who breaks twice a week. If there are products that I don't like, we don't see them in the breaks. I don't have any allegiances to anyone. If I like a service, I tell you guys, like, I like KK Sports Cards. I like their service a lot. Like to buy from Decard World. They're one of the great online retailers. So if there's a service I like, I tell you. If there's a product I like Pro Mold for our one touches, I tell you, a Shield Titan for my oversized top loads. But I don't accept, I get offers all the time in my inbox to do collaborations or to promote products within my videos. I don't do any of that. And I don't necessarily like other influencers doing that. I don't like people pushing Whatnot specifically without notating and telling y'all that, hey, I'm associated with Whatnot, or hey, I'm getting this sort of kickback. I think that anytime an influencer is out there and is talking about a product, is talking about anything, I think you need to disclose, what your partnerships are and what you're doing. And as of right now, I have no partnerships, and that's not because nobody's offered. It's because I've specifically chose to do things my own way so that I can say my own thing. And yeah, I never wanna be put in a position to where I have to talk positively about something that I can't in my heart, truly get behind. I think that for fighting back, I think people just have to make informed decisions. You can take in all of this content, you can take in all of everybody else's opinions and advice and whatnot, and at the end of the day, you have to be willing to make your own opinion and not let other people make opinions for you. That's the absolute best advice that I can give. Take in our content, take in people's ideas, even the influencers who want you to do and buy what they say. You can take in their opinion, you can take in their content, but at the end of the day, you have to make the best opinion, and that's what really will help fight back. Let's continue. More questions about controversies in the hobby. Do I think that the Kaboom scandal fraud is ongoing with other Panini products as well? What is my take on the rumors that the influencers are getting better boxes? This was a couple of questions that was asked. So I know that Chad from Firehand Cards took a real hands-on approach with determining if the Kaboom scandal could carry on over to the serial numbers in Panini 1-in-1 Basketball, which was released last month. And I believe he tracked about 10 cases, which is around 100 boxes. And although there were some, he was writing down the serial number and then writing down what the major hit in the box was. And I think there was a slight correlation at first, but as time went on, he realized, and everybody realized, that there wasn't a pattern that was showing up frequently. And so can the Kaboom scandal, and for those not familiar with the Kaboom scandal, basically, there was a serial number on 2021-2022 Panini Crown Royal Basketball hobby boxes, and if a certain pattern appeared in the center, there was a guaranteed Kaboom in the box. My buddy Hitman Rips actually put out a video proving it to be true. So do I think that could be applied to other products and in the past? Yes, absolutely. Do I think that people are going to be uncovering these? Probably not. Even though those products were ripped in mass, it's not like the breakers or the people opening it on camera from the videos in the past were showing, those serial numbers. So I think it would take an insane amount of detective work to determine any sort of pattern on products that in the past, like Crown Royal from the previous year or 1-in-1 from the previous year. Not only do you have to figure out what the pattern was, you also have to find content with those serial numbers present and be legible enough to read them. Can it be applied? Are there people out there that know those numbers if they are applied to other products? Yes. Is that where influencer boxes come from? If there are such a thing as influencer boxes, probably. There's probably some information that's spilled out there, just like with the Crown Royal set, with the one guy on, I think it was Whatnot, wanting to look at the serial numbers and knowing where the Kabooms could potentially be based off of those serial numbers. I think there would be other people who did know that information, and maybe that is why we see an increased hit rate from certain breakers. But do I think that Panini just hands out or ships out a box to somebody with 100,000 subscribers or somebody who's huge on Twitch? No, I don't think they do that. I think that there are times when people in the hobby go on absolutely incredible tears, and then you start to see hit after hit after hit. I think even Hitman Rips can attest to him having a 3-month period here in the fall where he was just absolutely on fire. Started with the white sparkle Mac Jones 101 at the height of the Mac Jones buying right before the start of the season. And then he just continued to hit monster card after monster card up until he hit the black snakeskin 101 Cade Cunningham courtside from Select first off the line. It just goes like that, and it comes and goes in waves. Now, there are certain breakers out there who rip 24/7, so naturally, if they're opening, 3 cases of 1-in-1 a day, and I'm opening maybe in our breaks 4 1-in-1 boxes a week, which is a half a case. If they're opening, 30 case or 20 cases of a product a week, and we're only opening a half a case, it goes without saying that they are going to see better cards, higher value cards. They are going to see those monster hits far more frequently than somebody doing smaller volume. But I don't think that Panini, for example, the Curry or the LeBron triple logo man, I don't think somebody from Panini hopped on a plane, hand delivered it to Backyard and said, "Now's the time, boys." I don't see that happening. I do think that if influencer boxes exist, they're probably tied to the serial number controversy that we saw last month. Let's go ahead. We have one more question about controversies, and somebody asked, given the current state of the hobby, which sport do you think is the steadiest market going forward? And this just alludes to, the whole market being down. We recently saw some consignment auctions that ended over Thanksgiving, mind you, which was a horrible time to run and end an auction during a time where people spend with holidays with their family. That being said, it goes without saying we're seeing slumping singles prices. Wax prices are continuing to come down. Things are returning to pre-pandemic levels. Some of these cards are down 80% from their all-time high. And I've said that it's kind of weird to look at things specifically from their all-time high to now. I think you have to look at things a little bit more micro. Look at things over the past, 3 months or a few months, and things are probably still down from then. But I just think that anytime you're comparing anything to all-time high, or like, for example, in basketball, if there's a rookie, who's a kid for Indiana, Benny Mathurin, comparing him to LeBron or comparing him to Michael Jordan in his rookie year, I think that's just silly. Comparing, the best to, something that's pretty good right now. So I think that, given the current state of the hobby, we are continuing to see things come down. I think that at some point, things will either slow down and stop, or start to go up. And players go up based off their performance all the time. We say it all the time. You buy in the off season, sell in the in season. Maybe that hasn't rang so much true for football, because football got way, way, way ridiculous in the off season, speculating on Mac Jones, Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, Justin Fields, Trey Lance, particularly. Even guys like Davis Mills got a lot of love. So then the season came around, and those guys couldn't live up to the hype. It was almost like with football, we saw it operate in the reverse. You wanted to sell in the offseason, buy in the in-season, because things have leveled back down to a correct price. The steadiest market going forward, in my opinion, has always been vintage baseball. There's just something about vintage baseball, the history, the heritage, the fact that baseball cards in particular date all the way back to the 1880s. We have the 1909 T206s, go all the way through the 30s. You have the Gowdies, and then into the 50s, where you have Topps and some Bowman back then. So I would say anything pre-70s baseball is probably going to be your steadiest investment. Even, you don't have to be buying the Mantles. You don't have to be buying the Clementes, the DiMaggios, the Ruths, all of that stuff. There's limited, unlike, the cards that they're printing today, there is a limited amount of vintage, especially high-grade vintage, even common high-grade vintage baseball available. And there are always going to be collectors. Basketball and football get a lot more love in the hobby in terms of ultra-modern, but there is just a slew of people who do want to get into that vintage game, who are learning about the history of the game, even younger people learning about the history of the game, learning about the players in baseball, because there are far more baseball players throughout the course of time than there have been basketball and football, far more relevant players, I should say. And baseball, it's America's pastime, right? It's one of the oldest games in the world. I think that baseball, vintage in particular, is the steadiest, and even modern baseball is the sport that you see the less deviation in terms of value, unless a guy like Tatis gets popped for steroids, or a guy like Bellinger just forgets how to play baseball. Prospecting in baseball is more along the lines of collecting and investing in football and basketball. So prospecting, none of it applies. But baseball, buying the Trouts, buying the Judges, buying the Ken Griffey Jr.'s, even, the Barry Bonds cards. There's a lot of just very, very sick baseball inserts from the 90s and early 2000s, stuff that you rarely see come to market at time. So I do think that baseball, probably your safest bet as far as the market, and being able to kind of weather some of the market and the slumping singles prices. All right, I do have a couple questions about my collecting experience, and just a collecting experience in general. Somebody asked, what do you do with all the base cards? Can I donate them, sell in bulk, or just throw out? It sort of pains me. It sort of pains my heart a little bit here to hear that somebody would throw out base cards. I will say I have a garage full of 5-row base card boxes. I'll tell you how I sort my collection, though. So I have basically when I have base, and I have boxes with top-loaded cards. I have boxes with penny sleeved cards, cards that I think are worth, $1 to a few $100s or more. But anything that I think is worth less than $1, I sort into one of two boxes. The first box is going to have your veteran base cards. So this is strictly veteran base. Maybe I sort out the Tom Brady's, the LeBron Jameses, and the Mike Trouts. A very, very limited base that I will consider sorting out. Just depends on the product. If it's like Top Series 1, I don't care. If it's like Hoops, I don't care. But maybe it's, Prizm Basketball. Of course, I'm going to sort out the LeBrons. Or it's a set like Mosaic Football. I'm probably going to sort out the Tom Brady's just because. Maybe even the Patrick Mahomes. Just depends on what you want to do. My other box of cards that I think is worth less than $1 each is for specifically rookie cards, insert cards, and also parallels, non-numbered parallels. All three of these get put into the same box, and I just kind of set those aside from the base. So in terms of the veteran base, because of how many cards they are printing now, I think you're going to be having to hold those for 50 plus years for them to be worth anything more than a few pennies, maybe a quarter, even the superstars. But I think it's safe to donate them. I think it's safe, if possible, to try to get them in the hands of a younger collector in your area, maybe a kid, or somebody less fortunate than you that can't afford to open newer product but likes the hobby. Maybe you can reach out to a Facebook group like a buy sell nothing group. There are a lot of those on Facebook, and find one specifically for your area and offer them out to kids. Do, just grab bags or something along those lines. I don't think you're going to find too many sellers in bulk. If you're trying to sell base cards in bulk, I would recommend using OfferUp or Craigslist. Always meet at a safe place like a Starbucks or something. I don't think there's any value in shipping that kind of stuff unless you're talking about older base cards. And by older, I mean 2010s and stuff like that. Stuff you don't see a ton of unless you go to shows or whatever. I definitely wouldn't recommend throwing it out again. That just kind of pains my heart when somebody says that. Somebody asking, what are my thoughts on soccer cards moving forward? This is a fun one because all year long, influencers tried to hype up soccer as like the number one sport. We're going to see insane returns during the World Cup. World Cup only once every 4 years. We saw the hobby and things try to get out of hand with soccer, and it turns out the market just didn't formulate the way that they thought it would. The soccer collectors have always been there. Maybe we picked up some new soccer collectors, or maybe the World Cup hype did pick up new people watching the sport, which in turn converted them to ripping some soccer. But we didn't see these runaway prices that we saw, or that some people thought that we were going to see. I like soccer cards. Soccer is a world sport. It's the most popular sport in the world. It's the most played sport in the world. Maybe not so much here in the United States, but it is a worldwide game. It is always going to have worldwide appeal, and that is why the market will never die, in my opinion. It'll go up and down just like any other sport, but I do think that soccer cards moving forward, it's strong. The hype, the popularity will wane a little bit after the World Cup, but it's always going to be there, especially for the GOATs. One thing that I've learned with soccer cards is that the GOATs are very, very polarizing from everything else. It's like basically the GOATs, and then there's really no mid. It's kind of the mid and the low. Mid and low range are all kind of one, and then you have the high-end GOAT stuff. Final question of the video. We did go kind of long. Somebody said, RGL, what do you have to say about yourself since the Seahawks are the first one? Hold on. Let me try this again because this question is a little wonky. RGL, what do you have to say about your Seahawks since you were the first one to say they will not win 6 games? Hey, I got this one wrong. On paper at the start of the year, the Seahawks didn't look good. They didn't look good, in my opinion, in the loss against the Vegas Raiders. Just a horrible loss to a all-time bad franchise who hasn't been good in a long, long time. I think very lowly of the Raiders. Yeah, that was a tough loss. I still don't think they're a playoff team. I really don't. If they squeak into the playoffs, can they pick up a win? Sure. Are they a Super Bowl contender? Do they stand a chance in hell against the Chiefs, against the Bills? No, I think the Super Bowl winner is coming out of the AFC this year, and I think it is going to be either the Chiefs or the Bills or potentially the Cowboys or the Eagles. Those would be my top 4 teams right now. And I'm not a Cowboys fan. I'm not an Eagles fan. I think at the end of the day, it's a Kansas City or Buffalo. So I just haven't been a fan of this team. They have been scrappy. They have played very, very well this year. Geno Smith has been very surprising. I will give him that. Watching Russ this year has been terrible. Sorry, Denver. I don't know what happened. We haven't seen a regression like this in a very long time. I suspect it's probably him just not gelling with that system in Denver at all. So as of right now, the Seahawks are in line to get like the 3rd or 4th overall pick for that Russ deal, which is insane considering Denver picked up Russ to potentially get them over the hump to be a playoff or a Super Bowl contender. And now it's just a miserable season for them. So thankfully, it hasn't been a miserable season for Seahawks fans. We've had some bumps along the way. We've picked up some wins that I thought on paper were surefire losses. But at the end of the day, I don't see this team as a playoff team. I got it wrong, though. I honestly thought the team was going to win like 5 games this year. When I looked at the schedule at the start of the season, I saw about 5 wins. So I am very surprised that they have done as well as they have. And they'll probably win some more games. Maybe they'll squeeze out a wild card. I do think San Francisco will probably take the West. So maybe they'll squeeze out a wild card, and maybe they'll even win a game. But I don't see them going much farther than that. And that's going to do it for this Q&A. I know I went a little long today. Not our normal content. We normally just rip stuff and talk about it, and we will get back to that either Friday or on Monday. Quick little note, if you're still watching, you are a hardcore for sure. We are breaking both Friday and Saturday this weekend. So Friday night spots are now available over on rungoodlife.com. That's going to be my time for today. Take care, stay safe, and we'll catch you next time on Down the Road.